in 2020 when EB3 became current and some EB2 cases became current as well, but the EB3 cases were moving faster. So a lot of people downgraded their I-140 from EB2 to EB3, so employment-based category 2 to employment-based category 3, and then they filed their 485s. Soon after, what happened is, after a year or so in 2021, EB2s started getting, EB3 started getting retrogressed and EB2 started moving faster. And now, as we know, this year, EB2 has moved very quickly, very fast, sometimes by a year, 6 months, each visa bulletin. And the visa bulletin comes out, as you know, every month. So it's been moving very rapidly, and a lot of people have become current. Those people who filed in 2020, they became current now based on their EB2 I-140. So now they want to again interfile from EB3 to EB2. So we were seeing that the refiling of a 485 seemed to be yielding better results than interfiling. So interfiling is basically when this happened and EB2 started moving faster, and these people had already filed their 485s, instead of filing a new 485 based on the EB2 I-140 that they also have. So they have two I-140s, EB2 and EB3, provided they refiled and they didn't amend their I-140. So for people whose EB2 I-140 was now current, the USCIS has asked them to interfile, which means that use their present 485 and ask USCIS, make a request in writing to USCIS to make use of the EB2 I-140. So it's basically a request. We're asking the EB2 I-140 to be interfiled along with the pending 485. So we've seen that rather than interfiling, refiling was yielding better results because those cases were going directly to the National Benefit Center. They were not going to Texas and Nebraska, and we know that all those 2020 cases are much more backlogged than the cases that were filed later because they're all in that bunch and they haven't been able to process that bunch of cases. And unfortunately, they're not really doing first come, first serve. So we're seeing that the cases filed later are actually being processed faster because those cases are going directly to a National Benefit Center. So if your dates are actually current, it might be beneficial to just refile your case. But we've also seen recently that there is some progress with interfiling as well. We've been getting receipts, we've been getting, and this is the consensus from in the immigration seminar with all the attorneys, where it's basically a consensus from all the experts that they're seeing progress with interfiling as well, and dates seem to be moving forward, and those cases seem to be moving forward, and there have been some approvals as well. So while in the beginning refiling seemed more beneficial, and it might still be beneficial to refile, interfiling is also showing some benefits. And the key difference is when you refile, it's going directly to NBC. So if it's current, NBC is processing cases much faster than Texas and Vermont and Nebraska. And especially if your EB3 I-140 is still pending, then it's unlikely that your case will be moved to NBC because all those cases are not being moved if the I-140 is pending. So that's why you have to decide what you want to do if you're choosing between one, whether refiling is better or interfiling. So as I said, I-485s with pending I-140 cases are not being transferred to NBC. So you might want to decide whether you want to keep that EB3 or move to an EB2 if you have an EB2 that's already approved. So interfiling can be done in many instances from one approved I-140 to another, from an approved I-140 to a pending I-140, from one pending I-140 to another pending I-140, from a pending I-140 to a new I-140, or even if from a derivative to a principal. So say you were a derivative and you had your own I-140, and now that has become current, you can move, ask the, even though now you might be a derivative, you can ask for the 485 to be the primary, or the principal applicant by showing your I-140 if you're the spouse. So that's also possible, derivative to principal applicant. Don't attach your, with the interfiling request, if you're doing interfiling, please don't attach any documents, because when they are looking at your interfiling request, they don't necessarily have your file with them, so they are not going to be able to put any of those documents like medicals or whatever you send in the file. So don't expect them to go into the file.
Yeah.
And another reminder is when you do interfiling, it restarts the clock for the AC-21. AC-21, again, to remind you, is people are able to move employers once the 485 is filed, I-140 is approved, and 6 months have elapsed from the date of filing the 485. You can move to a different employer, and that employer can now be your sponsor. But if you do an interfile, they're saying that from the date that you request the interfile, you have to wait for 180 days before you can then again transfer your employer. So it resets the clock. And another thing to keep in mind when you do your interfile or refile, if you're choosing between the two, is, when you're interfiling, your child's age continues to be locked. But if you refile, obviously, as of that date, the child will be, that particular age. And if they have, then that second I-485 may not be of much use to your child because they might age out, right? So that's another thing to keep in mind. I would suggest do both. If you have the time and the money to do it, do both. That way you'll have the benefit of both, and you don't have to guess which is better.
Right.